Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Eilber, Artistic Director of the Martha Graham Dance Company, and we are delighted to be here to share with you the results of our week-long residency. We're so appreciative. It's such a gift to be given a theater, the time, the space, the technical facilities, the crew, to be able to bring a new work to fruition. So we're going to share that with you tonight. We're also pleased to be here as part of the 3-year celebration of the Martha Graham Dance Company's 100th anniversary. We are proud to be the oldest dance company in the United States. Thank you. Yeah. Some of you may be asking, what is the oldest dance company in the United States doing here at a series that's dedicated to cutting-edge new work? Well, I'm glad you asked. Today's Martha Graham Company performs the mid-century modern classics created by Martha Graham alongside new works from some of today's top choreographers. And we find there's a real conversation to be had. The new works frame and bring fresh eyes to the grand relevancy of the Graham classics. And the Graham classics frame the new works with the trajectory of American dance. And we're going to give you a sample of how that works tonight. We're going to begin with a short but genuine, profound Graham classic. And then we're going to talk with Amadi and Sam, Baye and Asa, about the process that brought this new work to life. We're also going to be joined by the wonderful lighting designer Yi-Chung Chen. But before we dive into everything new, we're going to start with this 4-minute solo that Martha created in 1930, Lamentation. This solo came together very early in Martha's revolution, at a time when she was struggling to find a way of moving that would reveal real human emotion. She was dissatisfied with the style of dance that she emerged out of, which was vaudevillian, very decorative, escapist dance. And she was working to strip away that facade and get down to what she called the thing itself. And in Lamentation, she achieved that goal. Imagine the audiences in 1930 who come to see a dance. And in this solo, the dancer is seated for almost the entire solo. We don't see her arms and legs. They're covered in a tube of fabric. That audience was confronted with the evocation, the sculptural evocation of grief. And Lamentation was the shot heard round the world that modernism had arrived in American dance. So as soon as the stage is ready, Martha used to tell us that you could watch Lamentation as if you're looking at a woman grieving, or as if you're looking at grief itself. Here is Leslie Andrea Williams in Lamentation. One more time. 1930. Seems like it belongs in this museum, doesn't it? So we're going to talk now about new work. When the Graham Company commissions choreographers to create something for our repertory, we look for artists who are wildly different from Martha Graham. We look for people who are not working in the Graham tradition or style, but of course have distinctive, unique voices to provide a complete contrast to our programming. And that is certainly true of the artists who are in charge of our newest creation, Amadi Washington and Sam Pratt, who I'm going to ask to join me now. Amadi and Sam. So I assume you're all thinking what I'm thinking. It's unusual to have two people choreograph one thing, and it's been kind of astonishing to watch. I don't know if it's an insult when I say I feel like you have one brain now somehow, because I know it's not all easy. But tell us a little bit about your history and how you came together and how this duo works.
Yeah, we've known each other since we were 6 years old, and we were lucky to go to a school very close to here, the Dalton School. And yeah, you see we brought some people from there, but yeah, some of our old teachers are out there, and some Dalton students are here also, and Dalton has a very wonderful dance program that starts in the 4th to 5th grade time period and goes all the way through high school, and we took an African dance class when we were in 5th grade and fell in love with it and kept
to get out of PE, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was fun for that year in 5th grade, and yeah, we fell in love with the djembe, the drum that the teacher brought in, and yeah, from there we started dancing in each other's pieces in high school, and then started working professionally together about a decade ago.
You went to different universities, but found each other again after that. And how did you decide to be choreographers and, launch a career together?
I think we both came back from school and were interested in trying to dance professionally also. And Amadi and I started ballet kind of late, and we realized when we graduated college that we need to go to ballet class, like a lot. So we did a year of that together pretty consistently, and through that time, spending time together after classes and having discussions about all kinds of things, not just about dance, but about politics, about the things in life that we were interested in. We developed a organic relationship and dialogue about those things, and it led to us wanting to collaborate full-time together.
I'm going to swing us over to this specific work now. When I first talked with you about creating something for the Graham Company, which is probably 3.5 or 4 years ago now, I mentioned that, if you were interested in visiting our archives or trying to take an inspiration from our legacy, of course that was totally open to you, and you leapt at the opportunity. Can you tell us about how that influenced your process?
Yes, we wanted to go into the Graham archives because this company obviously has a deep legacy in history, and we wanted to see if we could be responsive to some of the material that Martha had made throughout her career, and we stumbled upon Cortege of Eagles. Joyce, the woman who runs the archives, gave us a whole list of pieces and showed us program notes and videos, and this particular piece struck us not only because of the music, which we absolutely loved, but we also felt that the Greek tragedy that she was responding to related to themes about war and related to themes about violence and mourning that felt interesting to dive into personally between us from our own perspective as political thinkers and also as just choreographers who like to talk about things that are honestly systemically affecting people. Yeah.
Even if we didn't have a sort of direct physical relationship to Graham technique. And I think there's the ways that Martha Graham technique has attack in it and arrival and clarity of shape and athleticism, and all of those things are embedded in what Amadi and I also do physically. And there's also this piece of Martha made political work. She responded to fascism in Europe. She responded to what was going on culturally in America throughout her time. The beginning of her work was a response and a rejection of what was going on artistically in dance in America. And so it felt symbiotic in that way as well.
And we should mention that the film you were watching as you came in is Cortege of Eagles. This is the Martha Graham work that these guys took inspiration from, and you borrowed a few things. Can you talk about some of the physical things that you
Stole
borrowed?
a few things.
Okay, so you stole a few things. You did, and I see them, I recognize them, and now that the audience has seen the film, maybe they'll recognize some of the moments and poses. But this brings us to the first section that the dancers are going to do some demonstration. Can you talk about this section?
Yeah, we named this section The Funeral, and it shows a lot of vignettes and archetypal positions that you see in other places in the piece, but you'll see it right now without lighting, and normally the dancers are isolated by light at different points in the stage. So in this kind of stripped down version, you'll get to see more of the transitions, but a lot of the material comes from Cortege of Eagles, and we took some of the images from Martha's original work and either augmented them or found different ways to make them move around the dancers in different ways that Martha didn't, so we could make our own contemporary adaptation.
And why is this section called Funeral?
No, I think funeral is, I think it can be in reference to a singular figure's demise. You know, there are lots of figures that, Cortege of Eagles is Martha's Iliad in a lot of ways. It's about the fall of the Trojan Empire, and there are lots of individual characters and figures that we all know and love from that historical narrative. And we take a lot of the moments where deaths are depicted in Martha's work, and instead we give them to the ensemble. So instead of sort of pointing out who is Polyxena, who is Hector, who is Achilles in this moment, they are all of a collective, of one ensemble.
Great. So we're going to see this, as you said, without the lighting design for this section. We should note that the dancers are also not in costume yet. They're going to be halfway in costume later on, right? Okay. Can we see this section?
Let's see it.
In times of extreme violence, not even the most powerful or innocent may escape.
Thank you, dancers. Let's mention the music at this point, since we've heard it, and whose voice that was.
Well, the voice is from the video that you saw as you were coming in, which was a televised version of the piece that was restaged for video. And we stole, again, a lot of the score, which Amadi and I really connected with when we were listening in the archives. Eugene Lester made a lot of compositions for Martha Graham, and we really connected with his music, and we took a lot of those things and augmented them and stretched and added new music, and our music editor is sitting somewhere right there, Jack Graybow, who we've known for a very long time. And we really, it's very special working with Jack. He doesn't mind that we sit right behind him and sort of sit like this, hovering over his shoulder. And the way that Amadi and I like to work together, it's collaborative, and we challenge each other, and we're arguing about stuff, and it's rare to find somebody that we can be open in that way with, and so we really, we appreciate all the work Jack's done on this and other projects with us.
Jack also went to school with us at Dalton.
Yeah.
And because we have a shared education, and I think all of us have an affinity for hip-hop music, and a lot of our dance background as children was in hip-hop and African dance, we have a strong relationship to rhythm, and there's a lot of musicality in our work. And Jack deeply understands this and knows how to intuitively work with us in a way that makes it easy, especially when you're working with material that's already existed, how to change it so that it fits into our sound vocabulary.
Great, and you're touching on the next topic, although for everyone out there who's my age, it's John Houseman's voice, who worked with Martha Graham. I know you younger guys probably don't know him, but... So we wanted to talk about your movement vocabulary and what the influences of those classes you had at Dalton or beyond now are the sort of the signature of the way you create movement for our dancers. I mean, it's not the hip-hop classes you had or the African dance you had, but what are the influences that now have brought this incredible physicality?
Yeah, we say that hip-hop and African dance forms inform the way we confront contemporary dance and theater. So what you see the dancers doing is not hip-hop dance, it's not African dance. It is contemporary dance. It's taking everything that we know from our histories, from our bodies, and putting it into something. But because we have this shared history, I think our relationship to speed, attack, to stop, and impact in movement is really informed by that foundation. And we try to take the things that we also learned from postmodern pedagogy and from Western classical techniques and loop it all into our choreography.
Yeah, I think it also comes from our political rage about lots of things that we speak about together and that we see in the world. And we talk about it as a yearning to sort of personally implicate ourselves in that political rage. And I think simultaneously there is a sort of unbridled joy and ecstasy that comes with dancing to the music, that comes from hitting the beat, that comes from being in sync with what is rhythmically happening in the environment. And so we hope that both of those things are always in our work.
Yeah, and I think you've chosen a great section as an example for this. You want to introduce what we're going to let the dancers show us next?
Yeah, the name of this section is Underworld. It appears at the very end of this piece when the dancers have gone through a very tumultuous journey and they arrive in the underworld. And this piece of music that you're about to hear is basically why we fell in love with this score. There's something haunting about it, but also hypnotic, and yeah, it's very driving, yes. Yeah.
So the dancers are ready. Here's Underworld. Part of it.
Part of it.
Thank you, dancers. I said part of it because actually all 8 dancers are in that section, so we just didn't want too many flinging arms and legs on the stage here tonight. In the first section we showed funeral, which of course the poses are very isolated by the lighting design. We talked about some of the physical moments you borrowed from Martha. Can you talk a little bit more about the thematic material that you took inspiration from?
Sure. Yeah, we talked about Cortege of Eagles, about the fall of the Trojan Empire. And there's a character named Charon who is the ferryman of death. So this figure that shepherds souls across the river Styx to the underworld, and he's sort of lurking and this harbinger of inevitable demise throughout the entire piece, and never interacting directly with any one character or any one group, but he's always there, shifting the energy with his Noguchi mask that is also his tongue, if you saw some images of that as you walk in. So when we were thinking about Martha making this piece about the crumbling of the Trojan Empire, we thought about the crumbling of our own empire and the crumbling of world powers and what this means in a contemporary way. And we decided to, as I think I mentioned briefly earlier, to take away the singularity of a historical figure and instead put the responsibility, the emphasis on the ensemble. And they're dressed all the same. They are one unit together. They are all equally at fault. They all equally feel the consequences of the group's action. So that's the ways in which we stole from Martha and also deviated.
There is, in all of Greek mythology, the idea that everything happens because of fate and that everything is predestined. And so by bringing this idea of the Charon, who's the harbinger of the demise of the Trojan Empire, expanding that into an entire ensemble, it allows us to implicate all of the dancers in a way where we hope that we can ask the question within this piece and back to the audience, who is responsible for the tragedy?
And for us, the timelessness of these themes that you are bringing forth in such a contemporary way that Martha was working on in her own way, it brings this conversation to the stage that I mentioned earlier about the new works and the classics speaking to each other. And we're really looking forward to having this work on our programs with, not with Cortege of Eagles, but with some of Martha's other Greek-inspired works. Do you want to talk about the names of some of the other sections, or do you want to go right into showing draft 654?
Yeah. Well, I'll speak about the two that you just mentioned. 654, I won't even get into. That's the name of the section because that's how we count it. That's for the dancers. That's more of an internal reference point for a very specific rhythm that they're following. The draft is the newest section of the piece. So when we first made the piece, a lot of the sections that you will see tonight, and like Underworld and the Funeral, and stuff that you'll see a little bit later on, we had condensed versions of those sections. The draft is an entirely new thing, and in the conversation around war and what it means to be in preparation for war, the draft felt like an obvious name for this section that kind of falls squarely in the beginning of the middle of the piece.
And are we using the vest tonight? Is this part of the draft section, the
Yes.
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 Okay.
You wanna
Do we
tell
not want to talk about it, and just let it happen?
Let's talk about it after.
Okay, let's talk about
we'll
it
wait,
after.
talk about it.
Okay.
You'll see.
So, tell us what we're about to see.
Yeah, you're going to see the draft through 654 and a couple of solos all connected with some lights, not the lights that Yi-Chung has so beautifully designed for the full iteration of the work. But we threw some stuff together really quick for y'all today.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's talk about the costumes. These beige sweatpants they're in are temporary. The actual costume designed by Caleb Krieg has beige slacks involved. But tell us about the vests.
First, I'll say in the first iteration of this work, the dancers all started out in these vests in their full costume. And a change that we decided to make in this expansion of this work is to have them get dressed throughout the piece. And Sam will talk a little bit about the inspiration, but these vests kind of give the impression that they are both in preparation for action or for battle, and also that they are in preparation for burial. But Sam can speak to that a little
we
more.
found these pictures of the ways in which historians might believed that bodies at the time of the Trojan War might have been wrapped, which is in these beautiful sort of overlapping muslin cloths. That had these ties on them, that had wraps for the head as well. And so we took some linen muslin fabric, and that was our jumping off point. And then we added some batting to the vest, which is that kind of like foam padding that you see, the vertical lines, which is supposed to evoke, what might be in a liner jacket underneath military garb or a warrior's breastplate, the layer just underneath between skin and armor.
Yeah, and I think the donning of these vests in the course of this section, titled Draft, suggests indoctrination and the group forming for the next section. Well, let's move on to the world that you were able to create up in our residency. We should let you know that we were in a theater which allowed them to create this world in a black setting, which we're not able to replicate here in this beautiful beige space. We want our collaborator to join us at this point, our wonderful lighting designer, Yi-Chung Chen. Yi-Chung, from my point of view, the lighting design for this piece is very complex, very specific to the choreography. Can you tell us about your process? What came first? Did Sam and Amadi tell you what they wanted? Did you see a rehearsal? How did it all come together?
So we did this piece premiere in 2023, and it's called Cortege 2023. And before I met them, they sent me the email with the document saying, at timestamped 0 minute, 15 seconds, there's have to be a light cue, had to be 15 seconds fade up. And it was, it's like 3 pages of document, and it was so specific about how the lights should be come up and fading out before I made them. So, and I received the page and the document. I walk into, not even the rehearsal. I didn't see a rehearsal. I feel like the first time we met was in the studio at the West Bath. And it's our studio, but it's not our standard tour situation because the floor is gray and the lighting is LED and just not enough compared to our normal tour. And I was trying to show them like, oh, this is our lighting system in our red plot, showing them the color, like what is in our red plot. And I remember I was responding to them of like one sentence, I don't remember what exactly. And I was like, okay, how about this idea? And I showed them. I was like, it's really cool, and I want to use this. They were like, okay, cool. No. But it's just very interesting, like when the choreographer has very, very, very specific vision of the piece and also the lighting or the costume, they walk in like so prepared, handing you a piece of paper, and you're like, okay, it's a Bible. I'm like following this. So I feel like last year when we did the Cortege 2023, I was doing that. But then luckily this year we were in Tennessee, and we spent 3 days together. We were roommates in the same apartment, and we were like really had the time finally to like really looking at the stuff. And then I feel like because we've been knowing each other maybe more than a year now, so we can trust each other more. So I will like throw my input a little bit more. Say sometimes Sam will be like, "Can you like do a half second like longer or like, less. And I was trying to show them or trying to tell them, oh no, it's not gonna work that way. So it's a very interesting process.
Very controlling process.
Well, we do, because we can't show you the lighting design that has come together in the last week or so, we're going to show you a video of the first iteration of this piece. And I believe this video is the section titled Funeral, where you saw the poses each arrive in that first section we showed you, so you can see how the lighting enhances this. Yeah. And I think we're supposed to keep talking while we see this video.
Keep talking.
Talkie.
So, Sam and Amadi, what's your side of the story? How do you really imagine the lighting design as you imagine the movement?
As we look through the section that you just saw at the beginning of this presentation, you can see how much isolation there is on stage. And so when we're choreographing this in the space, of course, we're thinking about how dancers are transitioning in and out of black space, and also how they're arriving in light. And when you work in a scenario with a repertory company that is rehearsing many different works, you also want to come with a certain level of preparation, because there's a fine line between, we're in a process, we want to experiment, and also we have to get the thing done, because after the 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, the time is up and the piece needs to be ready for you guys to show it. So I think Yi-Chung experienced some of our rigidity around around the scenario of having a circumscribed period, but also we think in terms of lights, and this is just how we talk and think about some of the ideas that we have.
From the very beginning,
Yes,
as you began to think about this choreography, it was created for a lighting design that had great specificity.
Well, the funeral specifically, all these lights that are fading in and out, they help us get out of linear time. I think a live performance is a linear time experience. You come in, you sit down for a duration, and going into blackness and hearing a full cinematic score and seeing these images come in and out as if they've been going on forever before the lights came up on them. So it works as our overture, setting up the stakes of the relationships that you hopefully see throughout the piece, seeing images that will repeat throughout the work, and Yi-Chung really helped us understand not only what was possible with the Martha Graham rep plot, but how to sort of make each moment feel dreamy and feel isolated and feel like its own little world.
The challenges, sort of behind the scene challenges, are that the dancers have to hit their marks. Once the lighting is set, they have to know where it is, or if they're slightly out of the light, it kind of ruins that whole section. Yi-Chung, can you talk about some of the other challenges? We've mentioned the Martha Graham rep plot. We want to take this ballet all over the world. So each stage is a little different. Each, technical equipment is different. How do you prepare for that?
So I designed the piece, but I'm also the lighting supervisor for the company. So I go on tour with the company all over the world. And it's really hard because our company always perform like medium space, big space, small space, like all over the place. And my job is to walk into the space and knowing how can I recreate the piece like authentically. So like yesterday, we were in Tianasville compared to today. I mean, I still need to recreate, but like with the limitation of the space, the lights, it's very, very challenging. But when you're trying to, when the choreographer trusts you, and then they know you can recreate authentically, then I think that's a win. But yes, it's always very, very difficult, especially when you tour internationally. When you go to Europe, you are using different kind of instruments, fixtures, compared to America. So you always have to think ahead, and how can you mimic, make it real, as close as possible to the real work.
So you feel that you're trusted to make the adjustments that you need to make?
I hope so.
Yeah.
We trust you.
I think so. I think so. Well, I'm excited to have you introduce this final section. It is very dependent on the light design. Tell us about it a little bit.
You're going to see a section called Sticks, and then a section called the Eulogy. And Styx refers to the river Styx, and there's lots of crossing patterns, and it's the arrival of war. And the eulogy, I kind of want you to just see it first before I speak about it. But there's a lot happening in a very small area, and it's frenetic, and there are flashes of images, and maybe you'll recognize some of them.
Yeah, and in this space, the lighting design for Eulogy it will allow us to see what's outside the light a little bit. In the black box, we really only see what's happening in that pool of light. So if you can try to imagine that. So this is our final section that we're going to show for you. We are delighted to be adding this to our repertoire. We hope everyone will come and see the premiere this spring during our New York season in April. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Just a big thank you to Works in Process for creating this time to work with the dancers, to annoy Yi-Chung about lighting details, and to really have that time to think and talk and argue about what this piece needs. And thank you to Janet for bringing us.
And the dancers, who are absolutely incredible and worked very, very hard this week. We're very honored to be here, Janet, and thank you, Duke, also.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Works in Process. That's our show. Thank you all for being here.